Okay, let's start today's reading. Yesterday, I was so nervous about my dog, Bessie, and uh, I took care of her and took her to the vet. The vet gave her 2 injections and some tablet for the next for the week. I so this morning I got up not too late, but take care of her and clean up a little bit. Then uh, finish all the things. I can sit here just now. It's already almost 9:30, and I hear my daughter. She's getting up. So maybe not we can't read too much today, but anyway, we we will try our best to read it. And yesterday, um, Philip got another friend, the new one, the newcomer, be, became his friend, but the America, um, the American that didn't like the newcomer. Uh, I think maybe she's, but he was right. I don't know. We don't know. We'll see what kind of personality of the newcomer and the um, American. Obviously, Philip he didn't like the American. Um, he was prefer the newcomer. Yeah, let's see. Let's from here. They made a practice of working together every afternoon, and Philip learned presently something of Hayward's circumstance. He was the son of a country judge. Okay, we already finished here, and okay, told you they were dead. Of course, it was fully said, but it was fully in which something fine. Philip, with a little thrill, thought it magnificent. Went to then Hayward went to London to read for the bar. We already finished here, and Hayward had one gift which was very precious. He had a real feeling for literature. We already finished there. Oh, oh yes, I do. I met 147 of him. We already Wick's eyes twinkled, twin, twinkled, but Philip, who didn't understand American humor. Okay, we finish here. Yes. Mm-hmm. Wicks had two little rooms at the back of the floor. Erlin's house. You know what? That's so interesting. Not so. Yeah, it's interesting for people to remember things. You see, I see early this name, and I read the Chinese version, 恶宁, then I can have um, more memory. I can memory this early. Otherwise, those names just they didn't come into my mind at all. So that is hometown, the home language, mm, the mother language is so important. I need to learn how to use English to think. Yeah, arranged as a Paula was comfortable enough for him to invite people to sit in. After supper, urged impish humor, which was the despair of his friends in Cambridge, Mass. Let's see. Imparish, impish humor. Let's see. Impish. 完毕的 impish humor 顽童似的 OK impish 顽童似的 impish humor which was the despair of his friend in Cambridge, Mass. Let's see what 绝望 was the despair of his friend, which was the despair of his friend. 对谁谁谁失去希望，对某人，对他的朋友。Which was the despair of his friend, despair of 对谁谁谁失望。绝望。Oh no no。失望。Humor, which was the despair of his friends. He often asked Philip and Hayward to come in for a chat. He received them with elaborate custody, and interested in their sitting in the only two, and insisted on comfortable chairs in the room. Though he didn't drink himself, with a politeness of which Philip recognized the irony, he put a couple of bottles of beer at Hayward's elbow, and he insisted on lighting matches whenever in the heat of argument, Hayward's pipe went out. Whenever in the heat of argument, Hayward's pipe went out. At the beginning of their acquaintance, Hayward, as a member of so celebrated a university, had adopted a patronizing attitude toward Weeks. Patronizing. Patronize. Patronizing.
Patronize.
Patronizing attitude. Had adopted a patronizing 高人一等的 patronizing attitude towards Weeks, a graduate of Harvard. At the beginning of their acquaintance, Hayward, as a member of so celebrated a university, had adopted a patronizing attitude towards Weeks, who was a graduate of Harvard. And when, by chance, the conversation turned upon the Greek tragedy, let's see, what this means. Tragedy. Oh, tragedy. Yeah, it is tragedy. Tragedian, 悲剧演员，悲剧作家。
Tragedian.
Tragedian, tragedian, 悲剧演员，悲剧作家。Tragedian, 悲剧演员，悲剧。Tragedian, upon tragedians, a subject upon which Hayward felt he spoke with authority. Accent. Authority. Let's see. Is it authority?
Authority.
He had assumed the air that it was his part to give information rather than to exchange ideas. Weeks had listened politely, with smiling modesty, till Harvard finished. Then he asked one or two insidious questions. Let's see. Insidious, 愚蠢的、潜伏的、潜在的、阴险的、狡猾的。Insidious.
Insidious.
狡猾的。狡猾的。潜在的。Insidious question, so innocent in appearance that Hayward, not seeing into what quandary let's see. Quandary. 困窘。Seeing into what a quandary they lead them. 困境。That's interesting. Quandary, they lead them. Let's see, is it quandary? It is quandary. What a quandary they led him.
Quandary.
Answered blandly. 殷勤的 blandly. Answered blandly. Weeks make a courteous有礼貌的 courteous 有礼貌的 courteous objection 礼貌的殷勤的 courteous objection, then a correction of fact. After that, a quotation from some little-known Latin commentator 评论家 Let's see. Commentator 时事评论员 Commentator It's 评论员时事评论员 Latin commentator then a reference to a German authority, and the fact was disclosed that he was a scholar. With smiling ease, apologetically, Weeks tore to pieces all that Hayward had said, with elaborate civility. With elaborate civility, he displayed the superficiality of his attainment. He displayed the superficiality superficiality
superficiality,
superficiality 表面的 superficiality 表面性的事物 of his attainment. He mocked him with gentle irony. He mocked him with gentle irony. Philip couldn't help seeing that Hayward looked a perfect fool, and Hayward had not the sense to hold his tongue. In his irritation, his self-assurance undaunted, he attempted to argue. He made wild statements, and Weeks amicably correct them. Weeks amicably corrected them. He reasoned falsely, and Weeks proved that he was absurd. Weeks confessed that he had taught Greek literature at Harvard. Okay. Hayward gave a laugh of scorn. I might have known it. Of course, you read Greek like a schoolmaster, he said. I read it like a poet. And do you find it more poetic? Do you find it more poetic when you don't quite know what it means? I thought it was only in revealed religion that a mistranslation improved the sense. At last, having finished the beer, Hayward left Weeks' room hot and disheveled. With an angry gesture, he sighed to Philip. Disheveled. Let's see. 头发蓬乱的 Okay. Disheveled. Oh. Disheveled. Yes, 头发蓬乱的。我们已经学过了 We already learned it. 头发蓬乱的。Disheveled. With an angry gesture, he sighed to Philip. Of course, the man's pedant. He has no real feeling for beauty. Accuracy is the virtue of clerks. It's the spirit of the Greek that we aim at. Weeks is like that fellow who went to hear Robinstein, Robinstein, and complained that he played false notes. False notes. What did they matter when he played divinely? Divinely. Let's see this this pedant. Of course, the man's pedant. The man's a pedant 是神学院的吗？卖弄学问的书呆子。Of course, the man's a pedant. 书呆子。I don't think so. He has no real feeling for beauty. Accuracy is the virtue of clerks. It's the spirit of the Greek that we aim at. Weeks is like that fellow who went to hear Rubinstein and complained that he played false notes. False notes. What did they matter when he played divinely? Philip, not knowing how many incompetent people have found solace in the impressed. Have found solace.
Solace.
Oh, okay. Philip, not knowing how many incompetent people have found solace. Yes, that's so funny. Found solace, 安慰。Found solace in those false notes was much impressed. Hayward could never resist the opportunity which Weeks offered him of regaining ground lost on a previous occasion, and Weeks was able with the great into a discussion, though he could not help seeing how small his attainments were beside the Americans' pertinacity. His wounded vanity, perhaps they are the same thing, would not allow him to give up the struggle. His British pertinacity固执。
Pertinacity.
Pertinacity. British pertinacity. That's interesting. 固执执拗。His wounded vanity. Wounded. 自负。Vanity. 无价值的东西。That's so interesting. 自负 is the same meaning as 无价值的东西。His wounded vanity. His wounded vanity, perhaps they are the same thing, I think so, would not allow him to give up the struggle. Hayward seemed to take a delight in displaying his ignorance. Self-satisfaction, and wrong-headedness. Whenever Hayward said something which was illogical, weak in a few words would show the falseness of his reasoning, pause for a moment to enjoy his triumph, and then hurry on another subject as though Christian charity impelled him to spare the vanquished foe. Philip tried sometimes to brand, and Weeks gently crushed him, but so kindly, differently from the way in which he answered Hayward, that even Philip, outrageously sensitive, could not feel hurt. Amazing. Now and then, losing his calm as he felt himself more and more foolish, Hayward became abusive, and only the American's smiling politeness prevented the argument from digen- into a quarrel, degenerating, the degenerating, degenerate, de, degenerate, degenerate. Okay, degenerate. This is degenerate.
degenerate,
Okay, from degenerate, from the degenerate prevent the arguments from degenerate into a quarrel, into a quarrel, into a quarrel. On this occasion, when Hayward left Weeks' room, he muttered angrily, "Damn Yankee! Damned Yankee!" That settled it. It was a perfect answer to an argument which had seemed unanswerable. Though they began by disgusting, though they began by discussing all manner of subjects in Weeks' little room, eventually the conversation always turned to religion. The theological the theological student took a professional interest in it, and Hayward welcomed a subject in which hard facts hard facts need not disconcert him. When feeling is Google, you can snap your anger at logic. When feeling is gauge, gauge,
gauge,
when feeling is the gauge, 标准尺度。When feeling is the gauge, you can snap your anger at logic, and when your logic is weak, that is very agreeable. Hayward found it difficult to explain his belief to Philip without a great law of words, but it was clear, and this feeling in with Philip's idea of the natural order of things, that he had been brought up in the church by law established, though he had not given up all idea of becoming a Roman Catholic. He still looked upon communion with sympathy. He had much to say in its praise, and he compared favorably its gorgeous ceremony with the simple service of the Church of England. He gave Philip Newman's Apologia to read, And Philip, finding it very dull, nevertheless read it to the end. Read it for its matter, said Hayward. He talked enthusiastically. He talked enthusiastically of the music at the oratory and said charming things about the connection between incense and the devotion spirit. Weeks listened to him with his frigid smile. Frigid, frigid. We already learned it. 寒冷的、冷漠的 frigid 冷漠的。哦哦哦哦，Okay, let's go back. Okay, 哦，frigid 冷漠的 frigid smell. You think it proved truth? You think it proved the truth of Roman Catholicism that John Henry Newman wrote good English and that Cardinal Manning has a picturesque appearance. However, he had gone through much trouble with his soul. Hayward hinted that you have a lesson? No. Hayward hinted that he had gone through much trouble with his soul. For a year he had swum in a sea of darkness. He passed his finger through his fair, waving hair and told them for £500 endure again those and agony of man, agony. Agony. Agony means 苦恼，极大的痛苦。Again, those agony. Fortunately, he had reached calm water hinted that he had gone through much trouble with his soul. For a year he had swum in a sea of darkness. He passed his fingers through his fair waved hair and told them that he would not for £500 endure. He would not for £500 endure again those agonies of man. Fortunately, he had reached calm water at last. But what do you believe? But what do you believe? Asked Philip, who was never satisfied with vigorous statement. I believe in the whole, the good, and the beauty. Hayward, with his loose, large lamp and the fine carriage of his head, looking very handsome when he said this, and he said it with an air. Is that how you would describe your religion in a census paper? Asked Wick in mad tone. Census paper. Let's see what census. Census. 人口普查。What? 统计 paper. Okay. Oh. Okay. Census paper. 人口普查。统计人口。 Okay. Is that how you would describe your religion in a census paper? Asked Wick in mad tone. I hate the rigid definition. I hate so ugly, so obvious. If you like, I will say that I believe in the Church of the Duke of Wellington and Mr. Gladstone. That's the Church of England, said Philip. Rigid definition. 激进的 rigid 严格的、僵硬的。严格的、僵硬的。I hate the rigid definition. It's so ugly, so obvious. If you like, I will say that I believe in the Church of the Duke of Wellington and Mr. Gloucester of England, said Philip. Oh, wise young man, retorted Hayward, with a smile which made Philip blush, for he felt that in putting into plain words what the other had expressed in a paraphrase. In a paraphrase, he had been guilty of vulgarity. Vulgarity. 粗鲁的、粗俗的。He had expressed in a paraphrase. What's this? 示意。Okay. Paraphrase. Paragraph 一段 paraphrase 示意。Okay, he had been guilty of vulgar. I think vulgar is 粗俗的、庸俗的。Yes, vulgarity. Let's see. Yes.
Vulgarity. Vulgarity. Vulgarity.
Vulgarity. I belong to the Church of England, but I love the gold. But I love the gold and the silk which clothes the priest of Rome, and his celibacy, and the confessional, and pottery, and purgatory. 是不是那个小诗 ？Yes, I think. Purgatory.
Purgatory. Purgatory.
炼狱。And the purgatory. 炼狱. And in the darkness of an Italian cathedral, incense-laden and mysterious, I believe with all my heart in the miracle of the Mass. In Venice, I have seen a fisherwoman come in, barefoot, throw down her basket of fish by her side, fall on his knee, and pray to the Madonna, and that I felt was the real faith. And I prayed and believed with her. But I believe also in Aphrodite and Apollo and the great god Pan. He had a charming voice, and he chose his words as he spoke. He uttered them almost Red Mackley. Is it Red Mackley? It's Red Mackley. Let's see. Red Mackley. Is it Red Mackley? Yeah. Red Mickle. Read
Rhythmical.
rhythmically. He would have gone on, but Weeks opened a second bottle of beer. Let me give you something to drink. Hayward turned to a slightly con, condes, condescend, condescending gesture. Condescending. Con, conde, con, conde. We already learned it a lot of time. Condescending. Yes, it is, but it's
Condescending.
Condescending gesture with the slightly condescending gesture which so impressed the youth. Now, are you satisfied? He asked. Philip, somewhat bewildered, confessed that he was. I'm disappointed that you didn't add a little Buddhism. I said Weeks, and I have a sort of sympathy for Mehmet. I regret that you should have left him out in the cold. Hayward laughed, for he was in the good humor with himself that evening, and the ring of his sentences will sounded pleasant in her ear. He emptied his glass. I didn't expect you to understand me, he answered. With your cold American intelligence. With your cold American intelligence, you can only adopt the critical attitude. Emerson, Emerson, and all that sort of thing. But what is criticism? Criticism. What is criticism? Criticism. Criticism is purely destructive. Anyone can destroy, but not everyone can build up. You are a pedant. You are a pedant, my dear fellow. The important thing is to construct. I'm constructive. I am a poet. Okay. Weeks looked at him with eyes which seemed at the same time to be quite grave and yet to be smiling brightly. I think, if you don't mind my saying so, you are a little drunk. Okay. Nothing to speak of, answered Hayward cheerfully, and not enough for me to overwhelm you in argument. But come, I have unbosomed my soul. Now tell us what your religion is. Weeks put his head on one side so that he looked like a sparrow on a perch. I've been trying to find that odd for years. I think I am a Unitarian. Unitarian. That's a dissenter. Unitarian. Let's see. Unitarian. 一元，上帝以位论 Unitarian. So 犹太教。
Unitarian.
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 I think I'm a Unitarian. 一元的 I think. Okay. But that's a dissenter. Dissenter. Dissenter 是异议者，持不同意见的。That's a dissenter.
Dissenter.
But that's a dissenter, said Philip. He could not imagine why they both burst into laughter. Hayward uproariously. Hayward uproariously, and Wick with a funny chuckle. And in England, dissenters aren't gentlemen, are they? Asked Wicks. Well, if you ask me point blank, they are not, replied Philip rather crossly. He hated being laughed at, and they laughed again. And will you tell me what a gentleman is? Asked Wicks. Oh, I don't know. Everyone knows what it is. Are you a gentleman? No thought had ever crossed Philip's mind on the subject, but he knew instead of himself. If a man tells you he's a gentleman, you can bet your boots, he retorted. Am I a gentleman? Philip's truthfulness made it difficult for him to answer, but he was naturally polite. Oh, well, you are different, he said. You are American, aren't you? I suppose we may take it that only Englishmen are gentlemen, said Wicks gravely. Philip didn't contradict him. 反驳应该 Let's see. Contradict. Yes. Philip didn't contradict him. Couldn't you give me a few more particulars? Asked Wicks. Couldn't you give me a few more particulars? Asked Wicks. Philip reddened, but growing angry, didn't care if he made himself ridiculous. I can give you plenty. He remembered his uncle's saying that it took 3 generations to make a gentleman. Oh, I hear this thing from China. Said it took 3 generations to make a gentleman. It was a companion probe to the silk purse and the soul's ear. First of all, he's the son of a gentleman, and he's been to a public school and to Oxford or Cambridge. Okay. Edinburgh wouldn't do, I suppose. Edinburgh, who's Edinburgh? Edinburgh wouldn't do, I suppose, asked Wicks. And he talks English to men, and he wears the right sort of thing. And if he is a gentleman, he can always tell if another chap's a gentleman. It seemed rather lame to Philip as he went on, but there it was. That was what he meant by the word, and everyone he had ever known and mean that too. It's evident to me that I'm not a gentleman. It's evident to me that I'm not a gentleman, said Wick. I don't see why you should have been so surprised because I was a dissenter. I don't quite know what a Unitarian. I don't know quite a Unitarian is, said Philip. Weeks in his odd way again put his head on one side. You almost expected him to tweet. A Unitarian very earnestly disbelieves in almost everything that a Unitarian very earnestly disbelieves in almost everything that anybody else believes. And he has a very lovely sustaining faith in he doesn't quite know what. I don't see I don't see why you should make fun of me, said Philip. I really want to know. My dear friend, I'm not making fun of you. I have arrived at the definition after years of great labor and the most un, anxious and the most anxious, never-ranking study. When Philip and Harvard got up to go, Weeks handed Philip a little book in a paper cover. I suppose you can read French pretty well by now. I wonder if this would amuse you. Philip thanked him and took the book. Look at the title. It was, I don't know. It occurred neither to Hayward nor to Wake that the conversation which helped them to pass an idle evening would be turned over afterward in Philip's active brain. It had never struck him before that religion was a matter upon which discussion was possible. To him, it meant the Church of England, and not to believe in its tenets was a sign of willfulness which could not fail of punishment here or hereafter. Okay, that's all for breakfast. Then took the girls go for a walk. Let's finish here.